Hey guys, it's me, Meredith, with my hat on, of course. It's getting a little colder outside. I was hoping I could just be in a t-shirt, but we're going Canadian tuxedo right now. I wanted to make a couple announcements before I got started outside and just get right to it. We have a contest right now with the Golf Tool Library going on. Sorry, I'm going to stop wiggling this around. There we go. We have a contest going on. If you go check out our main Instagram page and find the blue post that says Make, Fix, and Grow, we have a contest where you can win some cool prizes such as membership, etc. So what we want to see is things that you've grown or fixed or made using our tools, and then hashtag that Make, Fix, Grow, and tag Golf Tool Library in that post so we can see it. That's that's my attempt at some social media announcements for the Golf Tool Library. I'm going to write about it in the writing of this IGTV video post, so you can see it later. But yeah, just tag us. I'm looking at it now. Tag Golf Tool Library, hashtag Make, Fix, Grow, and show us some things that you have fixed, maybe saved from the landfill or throwing out. Things that you have grown using our tools. If you borrowed the rototiller, what did you do? What did you make? Or if you made anything cool in the kitchen, or with some of our carpentry supplies. We want to see it. So today, it's going to be nice and quick. Talking about sowing seeds directly outdoors. I'm at the point now where I don't have too many things that I'm starting, but I am going to start some zinnias, but I'll talk about some other different types of things you can start right now. The threat of frost is still possible in our area in southern Ontario. For some people, might even more northern than us, you can still get some frost. But it is a good time to keep starting those greens directly outside. Some flowers do quite well at this time of temperature. Lettuce, of course, spinach. The cool temperatures stop them from bolting right away, so it's a really good time to start those greens. Of course, peas, but of course again, but it is a little bit too early to start some more warm weather crops outside. You can start squash right now, but it's still a little bit cold for cucumbers, tomatillos, things like that, and to be putting your peppers or tomatoes outside. So we definitely have to wait a little bit longer before we plant out tomatoes and peppers. I usually wait until June 1st to be safe. This year it's looking like maybe it'll warm up more by the end of the month and I can get them in maybe a week early. It won't really make too much of a difference, but as long as I aim for the deadline of June 1st, my tomatoes are always massive and very thankful for that start time. So I just started making this new garden area in the yard. I'm hoping that the Wi-Fi stays on while I do this. I'm going to turn this around so you can see it. My dog doesn't like when people stand in this area, so hopefully he doesn't bark this whole time. But I kind of made this tiny raised bed in this back corner of my garden that isn't very nice. There's some raspberries in a big container there. And then of course I had these big leftovers from the jugs that we turned into cloches, and I thought, what can I do with these? I'm gonna make this weird sci-fi area to start some things maybe underneath them. So maybe, right now I put some strawberries underneath, and I just have them covered because the last 2 nights have been -1. It was 4 degrees last night, but -1's a little cold, and I watered these up nice. I might take this off, give them a water before I go to bed and after the live stream here, because my hose is quite a ways away. But I put a bunch under each one of these, and I'm hoping that they'll actually take over this area. But we'll have some room to start some more stuff underneath those guys. I'm going to be starting some zinnias, but you can imagine it's any other sort of vegetable or leafy green crop. It's definitely getting colder again because the chickens have already put themselves to bed, so there's nobody to say hi to. But yeah, I'm actually glad I had these on because I can kind of see where I want to put my seeds underneath here and then put them right back on. Now, one important thing you'll have to do before you start your seeds is make sure that your soil is ready. So if you were going to make any kind of soil amendments, add compost to this, add any sand to this, depending on what it needs, that's something you got to do before you add the seeds, because it's pretty hard to move them once they get started, and they don't like to be moved. Most plants that are direct sown, the roots spread out naturally quite a bit, so they're kind of tricky to transplant. The other thing that I like to do, and I'm just going to show the difference. All of this soil has been nice and worked up. You can see that I've removed pretty much all of the rocks. If I find them, I just have a place I can throw them. But this soil is otherwise ready to go, nice and fluffy and kind of pre-moistened. Now over here, I've been stepping around a lot, and if you were, so it looks like a seed actually. This is part of the chicken run not too long ago, but as you can see, it is very hard. So if I was planting seeds in this, I would maybe want to soften up this top layer. Not necessarily meaning you have to actually till it up with a power tool, because of course some of you may be familiar with like the no-till method, but what we do want to do, there's a fair amount of clay in this soil obviously because it's quite compacted. The base level is I want to work up the top of this soil, if not more, so that those young plants actually don't have to fight so hard to develop roots. I'm not going to plant right here, but just a demonstration. Just a bit of working up. Doesn't take too long to actually make it nice and fluffy, at least on the top layer. In vegetable gardens or annual beds, anything where the plants are probably just going to be there for one season, it's not like hugely necessary that it's the softest, fluffiest place in the world. Raised beds make this kind of easier sometimes because we know for sure that soil is not being compacted by stepping around. You can really see the difference of where it's been stepped around and how soft that actually is now. But we want to make sure that the seed can actually poke out of the soil. So when we put this back, knowing that there's kind of a high clay, we don't really want to press these down too much and make it more difficult for any seedlings to start. But if this was a perennial bed, you don't have to do the whole thing. Obviously, if you're going to put a new plant in here or plant some flowers in between some other plants, like I'll show you an example of that. If I wanted to plant some seeds, in this bed somewhere, I just need to work up the area that I'm going to go, not the entire bed. I don't want to disturb the roots of the other plants in here before I get started. That one kind of got chewed up by something. Oh, it's too early for these kind of garden problems, I think. But yeah, stuff's coming up. I kind of dumped some weird potting soil on here and the color's strange, but yeah, sometimes I'm experimenting with these, placing them places to try and get some of the slower hostas to kind of start. But my new plan is to start some stuff under them over here, act as little mini greenhouses maybe for the next week and a half, and then give them a fighting chance over here. I'm always worried too that, at least in my situation, the chickens might escape and do some landscaping and snacking of their own choices in that way. And as much as I would love to give that to them, when you're in a small urban space, I get to decide what is eaten and where. Otherwise, we wouldn't have much of a garden. The chickens would literally destroy everything. So that side's pretty much worked up, and I know where I'm going to put. So you always end up finding things. Oh, the hosta I missed. It's got a worm in it, but this is like a little hosta root cluster that I forgot in this pile. So I'm going to plant that later. But this side's all ready to go. and we can do some planting. I think I've mentioned this in other videos, and if you don't know this, or you do, it's probably one of the best pieces of advice, and that is to only plant your seeds as deep as they are big. So I'm going to be, let's see where the tripod wants to be. It's not even ground here. That works for now. So I look through my zinnia bag. You know, with peas, we want to go a little bit deeper because if they're too much at the surface, they just sprout and kind of plop over and don't get a good base root situation going on. But smaller, more fine seeds like carrots and radishes, we really don't have to go very deep at all. And I am going to do some, how many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to pick 4 different kinds of zinnias, and I'm just going to do mixed because I have plans for the other ones. Just those 3 and see what happens, see if there's any difference from one of my favorite seed companies, Wild Garden Seed, in Oregon. Not super close, but they have some really interesting experimental crops, which I love to try out. Now, zinnia seed creates these really cool little arrowheads, and they're quite they're long, but they're very thin. So I'm going to go for kind of a medium depth on these guys, not too deep, but not right at the surface either. When these sprout, they actually come up pretty fast, pretty good, but anything near the surface can kind of topple over because it's just not anchored properly. But I'm going to put, you know, a dozen or so seeds underneath each one of these kind of half cloches. And usually if I was growing like in a crop setting, I would just make like a line down the middle, plant things, and then cover it. But in this case, I'm just going to create a couple holes, drop 1 or 2 seeds into each one of the holes, and cover that back up. Kind of like a 5 dice look. Not too deep. 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Maybe a couple more. All right. Can barely see them, but those are planted. And I'm just going to cover it back up kind of gently like that. And you could put a marker in the ground, but since I'm doing this, now I have an idea of where I put it. And I can continue on like that. We're going to travel over to my other raised bed. Someone is not ready for bed. Are you going to try again? The top rung of the ladder keeps sliding. Have to add another screw. Did they make room for you inside? Oh. Blocked at the gate. Well, let's let them sort that out. My circle of grass has come back. I had to reseed it. And with grass seed, you put it right near the surface. And it didn't do, I think the most of it sprouted. These are just hulls, I think. But it did pretty good. It's kind of sad close up, but from a distance, it's green. All right, so these guys, oh, this is like perfect light for this, my goodness. This is one of my raised beds. I don't know if you can see that as I came in. They need to be repainted for the season. These were our winter sown bottles. I gotta open these up soon. Maybe even next week. This light is perfect. Inside each of the bottles is a bunch of seedlings that are ready to be placed around. Some Swiss chard in here. Some weeds in there, but overall, I like starting Swiss chard like this and not direct sowing it because it almost always needs to be thinned out. And I like being able to choose the colors and where they'll end up going and in which order. This is all rhubarb chard. It's all like red. Some things didn't start, but some did. This one's kind of cool. If it'll focus. This was like the midnight snapdragons. It's actually, the foliage is like a purpley green. Cool. But anyways, we started these direct sown into the raised bed, but I had the poly covers on, which kept them nice and warm like a greenhouse, and they are basically ready to be either transplanted or even harvested, thinned out. There's some spinach there, a bunch of flowers that did quite well. I think it's straw flower. It's kind of taking over underneath, but there's a kale mix, and then there's some random lettuces that I need to move out because they will become much larger if I give them the chance. This was like a heavy seeding. This is not normally something I would recommend if you were to keep them here for the full time. I'm going to lift these up delicately, split them apart, and space them out for a thicker harvest. Sad cucumbers I thought I could start under here. Some of them are doing okay. There's some cucamelons that are doing okay, but the cucumbers are not totally happy that I did that to them and put them out here when it was cold. But I'm hoping they'll bounce back. I have more seed where that came from, for sure. But yeah, that's direct seeding outside. I mean, not much else to say about it other than it looks like weather-wise, like we are good to go. We are good to go. Oh, finally, some sun. We are good to go in terms of planting things outside, as long as it's not a super hot crop. Stuff like that you can still start indoors for some little, ahead of schedule plantings. Yeah, I don't really have any room to start anything in the ground here, and I was hoping to get out to the grow garden, but there will be a tour coming soon. Next week I think I'm doing like a spring planter, how to make like a cute, I'll show you my window box, how to plant things for fun in a container, whether that's vegetables or pretty flowers. There it is. This is my window box. It has some pansies, some lemon thyme, some annuals, some primrose right now. I'm going to switch this over. This is more challenging than it has to be. But I put everything in here about a week ago, and it's all nice and bouncy and filled in and happy. So I'm going to be showing how to do that and maybe mix in like some kale. I've got some things I want to move. This raised bed, it's got a lot of things going on that I'm not necessarily a fan of. I've got another raspberry in a pot that I had to move out of that back area. It's actually doing pretty well. I'm pleased. It might end up living in there for the season. I had some volunteer cannabis that grew on its own, and I kind of had them under the cold frames. And when it's really cold, I've been putting the cloches on at night. They just fit. Like if they get any bigger, it's right at the top there. Just in case. It's kind of interesting. These ones have like a purplish to them. I have no idea what kind they are. I have no idea about them at all. All I know is I'll probably move those out. As a good rule of thumb, it's good to mix up where you plant things. So I don't always put the same crops, no matter what it is, in the same spot, especially not potatoes, tomatoes, things in that group. This kale, we keep following the journey of this kale. I don't know what happened there, but one day underneath the poly, it got kind of dry, and that leaf is kind of crisped up, but the rest of it is looking absolutely gorgeous. This is like a red boar, red frizzled kale, and what's awesome about these is they get incredibly tall, and I just keep pecking away at the bottom leaves, so soon I'll be taking those away. It can focus more on the top and get super tall and interesting, and I might put one of these, they're just too pretty not to, I might put one of these in a planter with these beautiful frizzled pansies that I have. I've got some violas over there. Everything needs a drink before I'm done for the day. I tried to grow some cannabis in here, and it's actually going pretty well as well. I planted a bunch, so that's going to have to be narrowed down. I tried to put some zinnias in here, but actually these are marigolds. I've had a really hard time growing my marigolds this way, and I thought it'd be easier because I always go through so many marigolds. Like I use them everywhere as like, that that crop that repels and makes other plants really happy. But they didn't do so well in the winter sowing method, for me at least. Maybe something was off with my seed. I know I hadn't bought any fresh for at least 2 years. But that's where I'm at with direct sowing. What else could I say? I mean, you could definitely start stuff, not like this type of stuff. Definitely a little bit too early for cucumbers. However, the cucamelons look okay. They look okay. It could be also that I used kind of a shitty potting soil for these, but you can also start them in something like that so that they're ready to be put somewhere else, but just lay it on top of the ground outside. I am ready to plant some stuff probably this weekend. Once we have had some warm rain and a couple more warm days, I really think stuff is going to take off. Oh yeah, I also forgot I did plant some violas as well in here. They kind of look chewed. I think I have like night slug problems, which is new for this garden, because I can't ever find anything during the day, but then in the morning it looks like things have been chewed. There's a nice lettuce. Yeah, getting ready to work that up and move that stuff around and actually take everything out of this raised bed and decide what's actually going to be in here, which will probably be some hot peppers, some funky stuff at home, because I really only have these 3 kind of raised bed spaces in full sun. So we gotta make do and make it look pretty. Wow, that is just the nicest sunset we've had in weeks. And I'm glad it happened on a Wednesday. Seems to happen. It happened last year when we had live streams. But yeah, if nobody has any questions, I think I'm going to sign off for tonight. Sorry if that wasn't super informative. Definitely rewatch the beginning of the video and some of my older videos from last spring. If you're looking for some inspiration or questions, I always answer those on the comments of any of the posts about backyard caring. So let me know. And I'll say it one more time. Don't forget to enter our contest. We have lots of prizes, including a membership you could give away or a free year of membership by tagging, what was it? Grow, make, fix. I don't know. Grow. Oh, I forget what it is. But anyways, look at the post. Enter the contest, tag Tool Library and stuff that you've made, fixed, and grown. Yes? Okay. I'll see you guys later. Bye.